How's it going, guys? I'm Chart. Welcome to this update video. It is filled with disappointment. So it is currently race day, the 25th of January, and I'm not at a racetrack. I'm in fact in a garage. So that means that I've completely missed the race day. It's happening as we speak, and you know what? Such is life. So when you get thrown down, you get back up and keep moving forward. So and that's what we're going to do. So there was a few things that I undertook, maybe a bit ambitious, and it didn't work out. So sometimes risks just don't pay out. So be that as it may, there's a few key sort of stumbling blocks that I came across that just completely threw out the timelines of this project, and that didn't allow me to get the car ready in time for this first event. So doesn't matter. What happened, and we're moving on. So the next event, I believe, is the end of February, which is a dyno event for one of the other series that I've entered the car into. So the car needs to be done by then. So it gives me more or less a month to finish the car. And not just that, as the time has sort of increased, I've also increased the scope somewhat. So the goal is to get the car ready and also tuned completely. So the car will make its normal or ideal power for this year at that dyno event. So that's the plan, but not for this video. This video is just about sharing the stumbling blocks that I've was thrown at me, and why it popped up and what I'm going to do about it to try and fix it. So yeah, so that's the idea. So let's jump into the first stumbling block. All right, so problem number one was the electric power steering. So I got the EG subframe fitted to the car. I removed the electric power steering from the Honda Civic, and on a day where I needed to marry these two components together, this happened. The FN2 electric power steering rack, and see if I can somehow make it fit. And after playing with the angles a bit, I don't think there's a way that I can make this fit. And this is not even with the engine installed, so I don't know how much clearance I have in the back of the engine. So this is not going to work. So I don't know what the plan is, but I need a different kind of plan. Alright, so that didn't work. Now, the amount of material that I would have had to cut out of the chassis to make that fit is just not safe, and that's not something I want to fiddle with. So is what it is. I mean, I tried orientating the steering rack in ways that I could try and foresee it working, and it just didn't pan out. So that's a complete stop. Now, I can't put the engine in the engine bay without the subframe and steering rack in place. So, well, not can't. You can if you really want to, but I prefer not to. It's a problem I need solving. I need to solve it, and then from there on I'll continue. So it is what it is. So to fix that stumbling block, I've done a bunch of research, and there's a few options. One was the manual steering rack that came in the EG. And they are actually very scarce, and not just scarce, they're also not really cheap. So, and also consulting some of my racing friends and some other elderly race experience veterans, power steering or assisted steering is essential for where I want to go with this vehicle, the things that I want to do, the power that I want to make. So the end goal is to have some sort of assisted steering. So even if the manual rack is a temporary solution, it stays a temporary solution. So it's money spent towards something that's temporarily. So research has ensued, and I came up with a solution to get the EG power steering rack, hydraulic power steering rack, and to drive a power steering, I either need to get hydraulic power steering pump or an electric power steering pump. Now, to make the hydraulic power steering pump work, the normal orientation or position of the pump on the engine is at the top, the very top. And in the EK chassis, it means that you are running into some serious problems with the bonnet. So that won't work. Now, luckily, there's some US-based companies that do make a relocation kit where you can then take the hydraulic power steering pump and you can place it where the aircon compressor used to be. Now, not only does it cost a bunch of money, it's also it has to be imported. It's just the lead time, the cost. It just is not going to work. So then I started looking locally to what electric sort of power steering solutions I can get and make work. Now, if you start Googling electric power steering conversion, you get a lot of projects that use the MR2 electric power steering motor. So I thought, I'm all done. Okay, cool. So there's some decent evidence on the net suggesting that it is indeed possible, and maybe I should invest in that. So, and that's what I've done. So after a bunch of research, I found a bunch of parts, and that's what I'm going to try and make work. So the first part. Okay, so that's the electric power steering. That's not going to work, so that's out. Part one is the hydraulic power steering from the EG. So that is as normal. It needs hydraulic pressure to work. So as long as I supply it with hydraulic pressure, that shouldn't be a problem. Now, to supply the hydraulic pressure, I got that. This is an electric power steering pump found in a Polo, and to be honest, there's a bunch of cars and they're all sort of similar. But I'm going to try and make that work to supply the hydraulic pressure, and coupled together, that should give me a hydraulically electric to hydraulic assisted power steering. So I already tested this pump. It does work. The only caveat is that this pump requires CAN bus signals to switch on. So the Civic Type R does have CAN bus running in its harnesses, so I'll have to sort of do a bunch of research still to try and see if I can make that work in some shape or form. But be it as it may, it's either going to be this pump or I'm going to swap out for a bit more simpler design, like typically found in some of the Volvos. Their electric power steering pumps just switch on and off with an ignition signal, and then the sensor sort of varies the pump, but it still switches on. So it runs in emergency mode just by giving it power. Where this one, even if you give it power, it doesn't run in emergency mode. It still needs to see that the engine is running. So, but okay, that's for me to solve. But in any case, so this solution will allow me to get the subframe in with the steering rack. Obviously, there some power, also hydraulic power lines, not hydraulic power, hydraulic lines, high pressure lines will need to be made. But I mean, that's easy problem to solve. But in any case, so then that can go in, and I can then start fitting the engine. So that is the solution that I think is going to work out well. And even if the pump doesn't work out and I have to switch it, the pump sits somewhere else. It's relocated somewhere else, so it doesn't affect the steering rack sitting in the subframe. So I can do that, get the engine in, and then continue with the project timeline. So that's a win. Okay, so problem number 2, the dash. The Civic Type R dash, which I'm trying to make work, is just too big to fit in. That's what she said. Anyway, so this dash, it's meant to run your main cluster, a screen up there and a screen up there. Now, I'm not that interested in that screen, but these two I do want, because this is your RPMs and this one does display your speed and your VTEC activation. So in any case, but that cavity, as the dash is now, is warped because you have this horizontal bar that runs from one side to the other side of the vehicle, and where that bar is located, it pushes against the dash at that point, and that upwards force is causing that cavity to warp. So the screen won't fit in that location. Now, to solve that, you can either not run that screen there, or you need to lower this horizontal bar. And ideally, I don't want to do any of those two. So that is the first problem. The second problem is that this dash area is extremely wide. So if I put the dash at the most right position, the natural midpoint of that dash sits about almost that far to the left, which means that if I were to fit the center console where the shifter sits, that whole shifter would have been moved over to where that seat starts. So that's an unnatural placement for it. Now you can move it over inward, but it's just going to make this sort of connection just all weird. So it will need a lot of custom work and stuff that it's just not worth it. So, and then furthermore, this dash one comes a lot lower than the EK dash. So I'll have to cut out most of this low hanging support. And then you have this problem where if I look at the support brace I made for the EK, gives me sort of indication where that dash would have stopped. And that's more or less about here. So all of this is just obstacle for me to get past when I try and get in and out of the car. Now, you can't just cut this out because then I'll lose this fascia plate that's holding in the main cluster. So with all these problems all together, it just means that I don't think it's worth pursuing any further. Now, to get to just this point, it took me almost a day and a half of taking the dash out of that car, stripping it, realizing what things I need to cut it out, and that's where we are at this point. So I have about 2 days worth of footage that doesn't mean anything. It just meant that it can't fit. So as 2 days worth of work wasted towards no end. So the obvious solution in this bit is to take this EK dash and make the main cluster and the speedo cluster fit in some shape or form and fit that back in. Simple solution, won't look as pretty, but it will be functional, it will be lighter, and it will also be the shortest turnaround time. So that's going to be the plan. So I won't get to it right away. I'm first going to focus my attentions in the engine bay, but we'll make this work. So yeah, so that was problem number 2. Right, problem number 3. Not a big problem, but a problem nonetheless. And that is that me trying to get all this work done in a relative short period of time meant that I really worked hard hours. I still have a normal day job. So after the day job, coming home, working till late, next day, over and over and over, you get tired. So at some point, your efficiency for working just continues to go down because you don't have the energy, you're not thinking straight. So I just realized I'm not going to make it, so I just stopped it. For the last few days, I just rested a bit, gathered my thoughts, and sort of also gave me time to research some solutions like the power steering pump and all of those things. So I knew at that point I'm going to miss the event, so thought let me rather than spend my time towards something better, planning, getting other things in place. So, and that's mainly the three sort of problems that I faced. That would I have made it if those 3 things went as planned? Maybe not. I don't know. But that's in the past. So from this point forward, so now I know the problems, I've got solutions, so now is just to get it done. So that's about it for this update video. Just a quick sort of information sharing just to tell you guys of of the progress, where I am, why I'm not at the first event, and what is the plans to get done. So the whole assembly of the K24 is already been shot. It just needs to be edited. So I'll release this video before the engine assembly, just to have give you guys some content in the meanwhile, give you guys an update, and then I'll edit that in the meantime and get that done, and then I'll share that. So that means that the engine is almost ready to go in. Cool, in the car. So that's where I'm getting this episode. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.